A millionaire's mistress cast the pregnant wife off a balcony. Years later, the wife exacted her revenge. Have you ever encountered a secret so shadowy, a treachery so ruthless, that it could shatter two lives with a single, merciless deed? Envision a dazzling penthouse, elevated above the vibrant streets of Manhattan, a place where aspirations flourished, and in this instance, almost faded away. A wife expecting a child, a cunning lover, and a wealthy husband ensnared in a complex tapestry of deceit. A brutal shove sent the wife tumbling from the balcony, her life and that of her unborn child suspended in a moment of uncertainty. Yet, the story was far from over. Years later, the scorned woman emerged from the ruins. And this time, she had company. James Davenport did not inherit riches, he forged his own fortune. In a quaint town nestled in upstate New York, he nurtured an unwavering drive. Throughout high school, he juggled 3 jobs, dedicating every extra penny to acquiring books on business, personal growth, and finance. By his 20s, James had created a groundbreaking software platform that attracted the interest of prominent venture capitalists. By the age of 30, he had divested his interest in that company and transitioned into real estate developments in Manhattan, establishing profitable collaborations with well-known entities such as the Marriott Group. Before long, he became a part owner of a luxurious hotel chain near Times Square, ascended to new heights in the economic realm, and amassed a considerable fortune. What set James apart was his effortless charisma. At every cocktail party, business meeting, or charity gala, he captured attention. He possessed a remarkable ability to ensure others felt acknowledged and valued. In these shimmering circles, James encountered Helena Lloyd for the first time, an art curator at a prestigious gallery in Manhattan. She stood tall and poised, exuding a quiet confidence, her mind a treasure trove of information on Renaissance paintings. Their courtship unfolded with a rapid intensity, filled with romance that echoed a bygone time of flickering candlelight and heartfelt letters. Helena exuded a captivating warmth that even the most affluent socialites, with their meticulously crafted personas, could never hope to imitate. The couple exchanged vows in an opulent ceremony at the Plaza Hotel, New York City's renowned jewel, amidst a gathering of business magnates, celebrities, and influential socialites. Champagne flowed as the media hailed them as a dynamic duo, the self-made millionaire and the sophisticated curator crafting a luminous future. Whispers of their complete happiness graced the pages of society columns for months. At first glance, it appeared they were immersed in a storybook existence, residing in a lavish penthouse, surrounded by a dedicated team catering to their every whim, and engaging in charitable pursuits that earned them features in high-end publications. Yet, in the shadows, fissures started to emerge. James's relentless pursuit of growth eclipsed any notion of domestic tranquility. He was perpetually in transit, flying to real estate symposiums in Hong Kong or gracing black tie events in Dubai. Helena, in the meantime, endeavored to create a tranquil sanctuary in that penthouse soaring above the city, yearning for James to be her companion in a deeper, more meaningful way rather than just a transient figure. Especially after she found out she was expecting, she thought this revelation would strengthen their bond. Yet amidst the whirlwind of affluence and aspiration, the boundaries of allegiance became effortlessly indistinct. Helena dismissed the quiet hints and murmurs from friends about James being spotted at dinners with a stranger. She had unwavering faith in her husband. Ultimately, he had put in the effort, overcome challenges, and never once showed her any open disrespect. Helena believed that his enterprise was simply that, an enterprise. She found no grounds to think differently. Yet, riches possess an uncanny ability to ignite the hidden flames of entitlement and desire. Thus, in silence, the seeds of treachery took root. Bianca Rossi stepped into New York with nothing but a solitary suitcase and lofty dreams. She was raised in a humble abode in Naples, Italy. Her mother operated a quaint stall selling fresh produce, while her father worked as a fisherman along the picturesque Amalfi Coast. From a young age, Bianca yearned for something beyond the ordinary. She envisioned a world of haute couture, societal recognition, and breaking free from the constraints of her past. With a self-assured gait and an enchanting smile, she maneuvered through the intricate maze of Manhattan's nightlife, building connections with affluent men she thought could assist her ascent in the social hierarchy. She was shrewd enough to realize that a trophy man was essential for her to establish her presence in high society. At a charity gala for an art museum, which was ironically curated by Helena herself, Bianca fixed her gaze on James Davenport. She recalled his visage from the cover of a business magazine. Her approach was straightforward: connect with his co-workers, orchestrate a relaxed introduction, and establish a lasting impression in his thoughts. With a captivating mix of light-hearted teasing, genuine focus, and her enchanting accent, she mesmerized James from their very first exchange. That evening, as Helena focused on the last touches of the event, Bianca made her move. She lingered until James found himself solitary, listless, twirling a glass of scotch beside the ornate statue at the gallery's threshold. Then she approached, radiant in a backless red gown, lips slightly parted in a playful smirk. They engaged in a lively discussion about creativity, exploration, and achievement. By the end of the night, Bianca had artfully ensured he walked away with her phone number. It lay nestled in his jacket pocket, inscribed with bold, assured lines of black ink. James was hesitant at first. A wave of guilt washed over him as he reminded himself that Helena was the woman he cherished, and that he stood on the threshold of becoming a father. Yet Bianca rendered herself utterly captivating. By chance, she encountered him in the lobby of the Marriott in Times Square, a place where James often conducted his business meetings. She lingered close to him at the real estate mixers, her eyes sparkling with a subtle, unvoiced allure. She softly uttered tender praises in Italian, when no one else could hear. The pursuit, the tantalizing danger, it captivated him completely. Bianca understood exactly how to flatter him. He was captivated by her boldness, the excitement of breaking free from his usual patterns. One evening, following an indulgent amount of champagne at a posh opening in Soho, James finally lowered his defenses. He found himself in Bianca's opulently adorned rented loft, sheltered from the scrutinizing gaze of the world. That night transformed into countless nights, igniting a perilous waltz of hidden truths and deception. As Helena meticulously prepared for the baby's arrival, selecting nursery furniture, picking out soft pastel bedding, and arranging doctor appointments, James seemed to find endless excuses to linger out late into the night. Late-night negotiations, carefully planned dinners, urgent calls from abroad. Helena made an effort to remain unaffected. She believed his growing absence was a sign of his commitment to ensuring their child's future, thinking perhaps he was facing additional stress. She yearned to trust in his noble intentions. It was only when she stumbled upon a napkin marked with lipstick in his suit pocket, a color she had never donned, that the initial whispers of uncertainty began to take root. From that moment on, a cascade of doubt became unavoidable. Helena might have overlooked the napkin incident had the rest of her life been tranquil. However, there was more to it than that. There were invoices for lavish jewelry she never saw, late-night phone conversations that James had in quiet spaces, and messages coming in at strange times that he swiftly erased. Her creative instincts surged, insisting that something was profoundly amiss. Initially, Helena attempted to address James with courtesy. She inquired about the expenses related to the jewelry. They might have been intended for a client, a family member, or as part of a business arrangement. He skillfully evaded the truth, weaving a tale about it being a raffle donation for a charity event or perhaps a sponsorship gift. The atmosphere was charged with intensity. She sensed she was submerged in a sea of unexpressed realities. In a moment of urgency, Helena sought the assistance of her close friend, Adele King, an interior designer well acquainted with affluent social circles. Adele had once seen James in the lounge at the Ritz-Carlton with a captivating brunette, certainly not Helena, who was at home. Adele attempted to reassure Helena that it could be a business associate, yet Helena's intuition suggested a different story. As Helena continued to push, James became increasingly withdrawn and agitated. He charged her with paranoia, pointed out her pregnancy and hormonal state, and urged her to calm down for the sake of the baby. It was a quintessential example of manipulation, though Helena had not yet recognized it as such. She sensed guilt edging closer, probing the depths of her own thoughts. The boundaries faded between her suspicions and the vivid scenes James crafted in her mind. Yet Helena was no one simpleton. She held the role of a curator, skilled in the examination of the genuineness of great works of art. She identified the forgeries with ease, and before long, she sensed the very foundation of her marriage beginning to erode. In a final attempt, Helena suggested seeking counseling. She yearned to preserve what they once shared, particularly for the future of their unborn child. James reluctantly consented, yet each session devolved into him shifting responsibility. One moment he would pretend to be engaged, and the next he would sharply declare that Helena was crossing the line. Their concluding session reached a serene impasse. Helena stepped out of the therapist's office, the rain pouring down around her as she held her belly close, a gesture of instinctive protection. Perhaps allowing him some distance is what he needs, she contemplated. Perhaps the most effective solution is to hold off until the baby is here. Then all will align perfectly. She clung to the faintest glimmer of possibility, yearning for a resolution, but hope eluded her grasp like grains of sand. The penthouse exuded a serene stillness that evening. Helena found herself in solitude within the expansive living room, the Manhattan skyline shimmering just beyond the towering windows. At 7 months along, she felt the familiar ache in her back. Her skin was taut, her heart burdened. A tide of solitude washed over her. Throughout the day, she had reached out to James multiple times, yet there was no reply. At approximately 10 o'clock, she heard the private elevator open, accompanied by its unmistakable chime. She anticipated watching James emerge, weary from his day at work. Instead, the figure that strolled in was a woman in 4-inch heels, a sleek black dress accentuating every curve, and eyes that glimmered with a chilling sense of victory. Bianca Rossi, a jolt of surprise seized Helena's very essence. She sprang to her feet, dismissing the nagging discomfort in her lower back. "Who are you and why are you here?" she demanded, her voice quivering with intensity. Bianca simply bestowed a patronizing smile. "I received an invitation, my dear." She wielded the word darling like a sharp blade. Helena's heart raced with intensity. She paused for a moment, slowly grasping the implication behind Bianca's words. "Were you invited? Who is responsible for that?" At that moment, James emerged from behind Bianca, his shoulders slumped in a way that suggested a blend of guilt and arrogance. He held a half-empty glass of whiskey, deliberately steering clear of Helena's gaze. "Helena," he started, his tone low. "It's time for a conversation." A silence enveloped the space. Helena's knuckles turned pale as she clutched the edge of a nearby armchair for stability. The child within her stirred, as if aware of the unease surrounding them. Bianca settled in comfortably, wandering through the living room, taking in the decor with a keen eye. "I adore what you've created here," she remarked nonchalantly, her perfectly groomed hand resting on a contemporary sculpture. Helena made her choice. Imparts an elegant atmosphere. Helena seethed with anger. This was her haven, her refuge. Her eyes bore into James, demanding an explanation. James let out a weary sigh as he placed his whiskey glass on the polished marble side table. His gaze darted between Bianca and Helena. He finally admitted, "I can no longer live a lie. Bianca and I exist." Engaged, the words settled into Helena's heart like heavy stones. She carried this man's child, and he remained composed, confident, revealing an affair in the presence of his lover. "Have you lost your senses?" She let out a sharp breath, tears stinging at the back of her eyes. "I'm 7 months along, James." You said we'd figure it all out," Bianca smirked. "James and I have been in a relationship for some time now. He has shared all the details regarding your efforts in therapy. Honestly, it's quite disappointing that you both even attempted. Some marriages simply aren't destined to endure," Helena snapped. Her feelings, her sorrow, her fierce desire to shield her unborn child, all erupted simultaneously. "Get out of my house," she shouted at Bianca, advancing with determination. Yet Bianca simply moved nearer, her eyes glinting with disdain. James lifted a hand, as though to create distance between them. All at once, chaos unfurled in a whirlwind of confusion. Helena was weeping, Bianca was throwing barbs, and James was attempting, but struggling, to separate them. Amidst the intensity of the clash, Helena surged ahead to push Bianca aside. Her thoughts ignited like a blaze, a chaotic storm of treachery swirling within. Yet Bianca exhibited an unexpected nimbleness. With a swift motion, she contorted her body, evading Helena's grasp, and firmly captured her wrists. "Don't you dare lay a finger on me, you miserable little wifey," Bianca hissed, her accent growing heavier with fury. They grappled with the challenge posed by the enormous windows that led out to a sweeping balcony. The rain pounded relentlessly on the glass doors, while lightning flashed across the skyline in wild, erratic bursts. In an unexpected move, Bianca released Helena's wrists, then propelled her with a sudden, strong shove. Helena's expectant form disrupted her sense of equilibrium. She faltered and, to her dismay, her forward motion propelled her right through the slightly ajar balcony door. James shouted her name, but the moment had passed. Helena tumbled backward, the brisk night air striking her with a jolt. Her arms waved desperately, searching for something, anything to soften her descent. Yet, all that lay behind her was a void of emptiness. Her thoughts came to a standstill, gripped by overwhelming fear. The wind whirled around her, a rushing sound filling her ears. Her sight became hazy, clouded by tears and trepidation. As the city lights danced beneath her, Helena fell from the penthouse balcony, vanishing into the shadows while thunder rumbled ominously above. Helena's cry intertwined with the tempest's fury and the booming rhythm resonating in her ears. Just moments earlier, the penthouse had been filled with heated exchanges, blame, and the piercing ache of treachery. In a jarring turn of events, Helena was unexpectedly knocked off her feet, cascading backward through the open balcony door. The torrential summer downpour and bursts of lightning cast a vivid light on the scene, highlighting her outstretched arms and the look of sheer terror on her face as she vanished into the abyss below. A moment of stillness ensued, as if the city were pausing to catch its breath. Bianca Rossi gazed into the swirling darkness, her heart pounding fiercely. The rain hammered against her shoulders, drenching her elegant dress. The burden of her actions pressed heavily upon her. In a fleeting instant of unrestrained rage, a single push, and Helena vanished. Beside her, James Davenport appeared frozen in place. Lightning illuminated the spectral whiteness of his visage, the whiskey glass slipping from his quaking grip, shattering upon the balcony floor. Neither he nor Bianca could pull their eyes from the place where Helena had disappeared. In an instant, a wave of panic engulfed James. "Helena," he called out, his voice trembling with urgency. He staggered ahead, bending over the railing, his gaze flitting down at the glossy surfaces of the lower balconies and terraces. The rain lashed at his face, distorting his sight. Far below, the neon lights and ceaseless Manhattan traffic seemed remote, almost surreal. He perceived nothing of Helena, no indication, no motion, merely shadows. Bianca, panting, finally took a step back. She took a deep breath, fighting to steady her quaking form. "James," he urged, his voice low and filled with urgency, "you need to call 911. At that moment, her thoughts spun with trepidation, yet also with a sense of strategy. This was not a moment for hesitation. They needed to weave their narrative swiftly or face the peril of losing it all. James clumsily searched for his phone. The rush of adrenaline left his hands slick with sweat, nearly making him fumble it. As the operator picked up, his words spilled forth in a chaotic, jumbled rush. "My wife fell from our balcony. Urgent assistance needed, she is expecting a baby." As time stretched on, the sound of sirens approached the imposing structure, echoing through the air. Security personnel arrived at the scene, hurrying into the penthouse with wide eyes, anticipating a chilling domestic situation. As they caught sight of the balcony doors flung wide, the tempest howling outside, and the look of devastation on James's face, they sprang into action without hesitation. A guard rushed down to the lower floors, clinging to the faint hope that Helena could still be alive. In the meantime, Bianca held tightly to James's arm. "Keep in mind," she murmured, "she lost her footing, that's the way it went." James stared blankly, lost in a fog. He nodded, yet his thoughts whirled with a heavy sense of guilt and foreboding. The vision of Helena's terrified gaze as she plummeted lingered in his mind, tormenting him with each inhale. He had never envisioned, even in the shadowy depths of his aspirations, that his betrayal in marriage would culminate in sorrow. Now, everything was coming apart at an alarming pace. Upon arriving at the lower balconies, the paramedics discovered Helena collapsed on a small terrace associated with an unoccupied apartment a few floors beneath. The terrace served as her vital connection to the world. Had she fallen the entire 10 stories, the impact would have been fatal. She lay still, a silent figure, buffeted by the relentless wind and pouring rain. Her breathing was faint, her vital signs alarmingly fragile. Without delay, the paramedics initiated critical life-saving measures, stabilizing her cervical spine and addressing the lacerations that stained her arms and face with blood. Even more troubling, her abdomen took the full impact of her fall, putting pressure on her unborn child. In the ensuing 30 minutes, the structure thrummed with a whirlwind of frantic energy. Neighbors cautiously glanced from their doorways, murmuring in concern. Emergency vehicles gathered below, their red and blue lights shimmering on the rain-soaked street. Photographers, tipped off about a potential high-stakes situation, rushed to capture images from behind barriers. James and Bianca, remaining in the penthouse, sensed the walls tightening around them as uniformed police officers entered to interrogate them. "What transpired?" inquired a lead detective, a statuesque figure clad in a coat soaked by the relentless rain. Her voice carried a steady, composed quality, reminiscent of one who has navigated many emergencies. James, his complexion pale, struggled to control his voice. "My wife Helena, she fell." An argument ensued. She staggered back, and his voice wavered. The detective turned her attention from James to Bianca, sensing the palpable tension that hung in the air between them. "And who might you be?" she inquired, arching an eyebrow. "I'm a friend," Bianca asserted, her eyes revealing a flicker of fear. "I was on a visit." A disagreement did indeed occur. Helena became frustrated, attempted to shove me, and then stumbled. Her voice became more assured as she recounted the tale she had shared with James for him to commit to memory. Helena took the initiative. All a mere coincidence. Once again on the street, an ambulance rushed off, siren blaring, transporting Helena's delicate form to the closest trauma center. Unbeknownst to James or Bianca, medical professionals were already springing into action, fully aware that a pregnant woman was battling for her life. The trauma team conducted a series of scans, revealing significant internal bleeding, numerous fractures, and a life-threatening head injury. As they battled to bring stability to Helena, their relentless efforts were equally focused on rescuing the baby. Upon James's arrival at the hospital an hour later, with Bianca following a few steps behind in a hooded coat to evade the press, he was greeted by somber expressions and a barrage of questions from the hospital staff. The announcement was heartbreaking. The infant did not make it. A skilled surgeon provided a thorough explanation of how the force of impact led to placental abruption and severe trauma. The child's fate was sealed, with no hope for salvation. James gazed in disbelief, tears tracing quiet trails down his face. For months, he had turned a deaf ear to Helena's pleas for intimacy during her pregnancy, leaving her to choose nursery decorations by herself. Now, the child he had never fully valued was gone. Helena was present in body, yet her mind lay in a deep slumber. She had drifted into unconsciousness at some point during the surgery, leaving the doctors uncertain about her chances of awakening. They informed James that her injuries were intricate: a fractured spine, multiple rib fractures, a punctured lung, and swelling in her brain. Should she endure, a lengthy and unpredictable journey toward healing would await her. James could hardly comprehend it. Ideas surged in his mind, a blend of remorse intertwined with anxiety and a distorted instinct for survival. He sensed Bianca's hand grip his shoulder, but her touch, once exhilarating, now left him with a sense of disgust. He flinched away reflexively. She glared, seething at his abrupt dismissal, yet prudently chose to remain silent. Law enforcement arrived shortly thereafter to gather formal accounts. James, an experienced entrepreneur accustomed to navigating complex negotiations, found it challenging to stay coherent. He recounted the familiar fabrications, a dispute, an incident, Helena stumbling. Bianca stood by his account steadfastly. Yet, the detective's intense stare remained fixed on them, suggesting that she believed there was more beneath the surface than they were revealing. Days melded seamlessly into nights. Helena lingered in a precarious state, the machines emitting a delicate rhythm of survival. James came by once, gently moving the clutter of tubes and wires to gaze at her battered face, her eyes shut tight. Something twisted within him. He came to understand, perhaps too late, that Helena represented far more than merely a source of comfort or a figure of social significance. She had been his steadfast support, his moral compass. And now that anchor was descending into an abyss he could not repair. Bianca, in contrast, displayed a complete lack of interest in the hospital vigil. She was occupied handling James's public relations dilemma, suggesting that they stick to their narrative, stay under the radar, and make sure Helena's attorneys were satisfied financially. The silence needed to be bought. Security personnel, employees, and anyone who witnessed anything inconsistent that evening, all needed substantial incentives to remain silent. The tabloid seized upon the tragedy with insatiable zeal. Headlines blared, the expectant spouse of a tech real estate tycoon involved in a tragic accident. Whispers of uncertainty filled the air, with theories ranging from Helena's potential despair to tales of conflict within her home. A tabloid released images of Bianca arriving at the penthouse that evening, igniting speculation about a possible affair. However, the official statements from James's legal team dismissed these rumors as unfounded and emphasized the narrative of a heartbreaking accident. In the quiet shadows of the hospital, a few nurses exchanged whispers, suggesting that Helena's injuries hinted at something far more serious than a simple fall. Several team members had their suspicions about something amiss. However, lacking direct evidence and faced with conflicting testimonies, the authorities categorized it as an accident while awaiting further developments. In the meantime, Helena's condition improved sufficiently for her to be moved to a long-term care unit. Experts engaged in a discussion regarding her outlook. There were those who thought she might remain in slumber forever. A few held on to a flicker of hope, noting that the human body could, in exceptional instances, surpass medical predictions. For James, that ambiguous coma transformed into a shadowy blessing. With Helena quieted, Bianca's story encountered no immediate opposition. Despite being consumed by guilt, James allowed Bianca and his legal team to formulate settlements and manipulate the narrative to protect them from further examination. He convinced himself that acknowledging any truth could jeopardize everything he had tirelessly built. In the penthouse where the incident unfolded, the housekeeping staff meticulously replaced the shattered glass, scrubbed away any remnants of blood, and restored every detail to its pristine condition. It felt as if Helena had faded into oblivion. In the stillness of the night, within the lavish confines of his home, James struggled to find rest. Each time he shut his eyes, Helena's scream reverberated through the tempest. The city swiftly turned its gaze, newspapers eagerly uncovering fresh scandals, yet Helena's destiny remained precariously poised, a shattered figure caught in the liminal space between existence and oblivion. The unborn child was laid to rest in a family plot, in a manner that was serene and devoid of any public attention. In a single, devastating instant, a life brimming with potential was irrevocably broken, casting shadows of guilt, insidious fears, and a truth that would forever echo in the hearts of James and Bianca. 2 years have gone by. The city has put the scandal behind it. Fresh gossip, new affairs, divorces, and bankruptcies among the wealthy quickly captured the attention of the society pages. James Davenport, accompanied by Bianca Rossi, made his way back to the social scene. They organized extravagant gatherings, explored new destinations, and poured resources into innovative projects worldwide. From time to time, tabloids would resurface mentions of Helena's accident, yet these brief sparks of intrigue never ignited into anything substantial. Helena's condition stayed mostly hidden from the public eye. Legally, she remained James' wife, yet James had initiated divorce proceedings, alleging abandonment, as he pointed out that Helena had opted to stay in long-term care. The settlement was modest, as Helena found herself unable to champion her own cause. Yet, within the serene confines of a discreet, privately funded rehabilitation center in Connecticut, Helena embarked on a gradual, extraordinary journey toward awareness. On a crisp autumn afternoon, the leaves outside her window transformed into shades of gold. A nurse was adjusting the fourth drip when Helena's eyes fluttered open. She muttered a few words that were hard to make out. Her muscles had withered from years of stillness, yet she was alert. The process of recovery dragged on painfully. Helena's voice carried a fragile quality. Her recollection was a chaotic array of puzzle pieces strewn haphazardly across a surface. She floated between moments of clarity and confusion. Medical professionals informed her that she would never regain the ability to walk unaided due to the spinal injury. They further clarified that her unborn baby had not made it through the fall. The sorrow enveloped her, heavy and suffocating, a profound anguish surpassing any bodily hurt. She dedicated countless hours to physical therapy, rediscovering how to move her limbs. Speech therapists assisted in reconstructing her broken language abilities. Amidst the sorrow and sleepless nights, Helena remembered the vital details. She recalled the look of guilt on James's face, the disdain in Bianca's sneer, and the instant that altered the course of everything. Yet the pain of losing her child, her unborn baby, for whom she had so tenderly arranged a nursery, was nearly indescribable. The caring team at the center provided Helena with the emotional support she truly required. She realized that James had ceased his visits after the initial days. Her financial obligations were addressed only to a small extent, resulting in debts that the center graciously deferred. Occasionally, nurses would recount tales from old newspaper clippings regarding the scandal, detailing how James and Bianca presented themselves at galas, as if Helena had never been a part of their lives. As the days unfolded, a steady, unwavering fire began to form within Helena's heart. She sought retribution for the child she had lost, for her own sake, and for the life that had been so ruthlessly overlooked. She promised herself to rise above bitterness, choosing instead to channel her anger with careful intent. In the face of the doctor's bleak prognosis, she resolutely chose not to be a passive victim. In therapy sessions, she discovered a refuge, bravely confronting the nightmares of her past. Silent resolve took the place of her sorrow. Each morning, she whispered to herself, "I survived for a reason," as she carefully maneuvered along the parallel bars in the physical therapy room. "I endured so I could ensure they faced the consequences." Another 18 months went by. The staff at the rehabilitation center were amazed by Helena's remarkable progress. Even though she required a cane or a wheelchair for extended journeys, her resilience was impressive. She mastered the art of managing daily activities on her own, from choosing her outfits to finding her way around her cozy therapy apartment. In this period, Helena found assistance from an unexpected ally, Adele King, her companion from Manhattan. Adele sought out Helena following the accident, yet found herself met with nothing but obstacles. The public relations facade crafted by James' legal team was unyielding, yet Adele remained resolute in her determination. Ultimately, a tip from an unknown source guided her to the Connecticut Rehab Center. Upon her arrival, she was taken aback to find Helena weakened, more pallid, yet still breathing. The emotional reunion reignited a flicker of hope within Helena's weary soul. Helena received steadfast encouragement from Adele. She presented papers outlining James' thriving empire, collected articles regarding Bianca's ascent in society, and shared hushed whispers about how the official narrative claimed Helena's downfall was merely a tragic accident. What was even more infuriating was the way James and Bianca crafted a story suggesting that Helena's mental turmoil had driven her to that fateful moment on the balcony. Although James had never explicitly labeled her as suicidal in the media, the suggestion remained palpable. What could have prompted him to act this way towards me? Helena gasped through her tears, her eyes shimmering with a blend of grief and resolve. Adele embraced her friend warmly. He's safeguarding his interests, Bianca, and their reputation. You're familiar with the dynamics in these circles. How one presents themselves is of utmost importance. Adele was the one who articulated the thoughts that had been quietly swirling in Helena's mind. Should the law fail to pursue justice, it might be necessary for them to independently collect undeniable evidence. In the coming months, Adele quietly gathered fragments of information. She located the security camera footage from the building's lobby that evening, uncovered logs from James's phone calls, and sought to converse with the building's security guards, who had hurried to the scene. Many seemed hesitant to speak, likely having entered into non-disclosure agreements for financial compensation. One guard, however, confided that he had seen part of the altercation through the ajar balcony door. He asserted that he witnessed Bianca with her hands resting on Helena's shoulders just moments before Helena vanished from sight. Nevertheless, he was filled with dread at the thought of going on the record. James Davenport's legal prowess could spell his downfall. Yet, Helena and Adele continued their journey. They meticulously examined James's old financial records, uncovering dubious transactions that hinted at hush money. Bianca's bank statements, shrouded in secrecy, suggested extravagant expenditures immediately following the incident. However, the most significant turn of events occurred when Adele encountered a medical intern who had been involved in Helena's case that night in the emergency room. The intern verified that Helena's injuries aligned with the scenario of being pushed, rather than simply slipping and falling. Alongside the internal bruising patterns encircling Helena's wrists, the intern firmly insisted that this was no mere accident. Helena's heart raced with intensity. She felt the elements aligning perfectly. A whirlwind of resolve propelled her forward, but she needed to embrace patience. To face them, she required more than a collection of fragmented assertions. She required a plan, one that would trap James and Bianca so completely that they would be unable to escape with their words. For years had elapsed since Helena slipped into her coma. She had meticulously reconstructed her existence. The once naive and trusting wife had vanished. A woman of unwavering determination stood in her stead. She returned to Manhattan, settling into a modest apartment on the Upper East Side, with some financial support from a small inheritance left by an aunt who had recently passed away. Through Adele's connections, Helena discovered a discreet legal advisor, an attorney who focused on high-profile personal injury and wrongful death cases while maintaining a low public profile. As James and Bianca reveled in luxury, flitting from one European summer retreat to another in Aspen's snowy embrace, Helena meticulously crafted her strategy in silence. She embraced each therapy session as an opportunity to fortify her body, resolute in her commitment to stand tall and voice her truth when the moment arrived. She concluded that the most effective strategy extended beyond merely pursuing a lawsuit. She sought both moral and social justice. She longed to witness the very society that had once adored James now turn its back on him. Ultimately, her desire was for their destruction. Adele arranged for Helena, using an alias, to attend an exclusive fundraiser at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Bianca and James were recognized as honorary hosts, highlighting Bianca's adept entry into the upper echelons of Manhattan society. Helena's heart raced at the sight of the invitation, yet she chose to accept it. This would mark her first public appearance in years, and the mere shock of her presence could start to unravel the carefully constructed facade that James and Bianca had maintained. As the evening of the fundraiser approached, Helena adorned herself in a sophisticated black gown featuring a high neckline, her hair elegantly styled in a chignon. She opted for low heels, aware of her delicate balance, and adorned herself with minimal jewelry, except for a solitary diamond bracelet gifted by James during the early days of their marriage. A last echo, she mused, of all that had slipped through her fingers. The magnificent lobby of the Met was alive with elegantly dressed attendees, sparkling chandeliers, and the enchanting sounds of a small orchestra playing classical melodies. Helena entered quietly, her cane providing subtle support, her stance dignified even with the discomfort in her back. She lingered on the periphery, poised for the perfect opportunity. Before long, Bianca and James stepped into the scene. Flashes erupted as they struck a pose at the base of the grand marble staircase. Bianca radiated elegance in a designer gown, her arm entwined confidently with James's. The sight churned within Helena, yet she remained steadfast. As the opening remarks came to an end, guests started to mingle and engage with one another. Helena spotted James at the bar, engaged in conversation with a prominent real estate mogul. She quietly made her way forward, the sound of her cane echoing softly against the gleaming floor. She was just a few steps away when James finally felt her presence and turned around. He nearly let his glass slip from his grasp. His eyes grew large as though he had encountered a specter. "Helena," he faltered, the color fading from his cheeks. Bianca, caught in the midst of her thought, turned abruptly. As soon as her gaze landed on Helena, she turned pale, briefly losing her poise. You are." She was unable to complete it. "Awake?" Helena concluded for her, her tone calm and steady. "Indeed, Bianca, I am." The atmosphere crackled with intensity among the gathered spectators. Soft murmurs flowed through the air, charged with an unseen energy. Helena was a familiar figure, particularly among the older generation, who recalled the whispered tales of the tragedy from years past. Bianca's eyes darted with alarm. She managed a courteous smile, yet her voice quivered. "We learned that you are receiving long-term care. It brings me great joy to see you moving around again." James appeared on the verge of losing consciousness. He extended his hand towards Helena's arm, yet she retreated, her cane resolutely positioned between them. "Please don't," she cautioned softly. Then she smiled with a calm grace. "I wish to extend my heartfelt congratulations to you both on your remarkable success and your graciousness as hosts." Her eyes swept dismissively across Bianca's diamond necklace. Bianca coughed, regaining a measure of her confidence. "Thanks a lot. We have made significant progress." She let out a laugh that echoed emptily. Helena nodded, her voice laced with sarcasm. "Absolutely. A great deal has transformed since our last conversation." James's eyes were filled with an unmistakable fear. He understood the fragility of this meeting. The whole facade could come apart with just one carefully crafted remark. "Helena," he started softly. "Let's find a quiet place to talk." Helena permitted a subtle smile to emerge. "There will be ample opportunity for us to reconnect, James. I have recently begun collaborating with a remarkable attorney." "You'll be hearing from us soon," Bianca snapped, her eyes aflame. "Legal professional? What for?" "For the baby," Helena murmured, her voice tinged with sadness. "For the act of attempting to take a life. For all that you have taken from me." Silence enveloped their close-knit group. A handful of attendees inhaled sharply. The atmosphere was thick with tension, almost tangible in its intensity. With a decisive pivot, Helena spun on her heel, her cane creating a steady cadence against the gleaming floor as she strode away, her head held high. That evening, she departed the gala with an invigorated sense of strength. She had struck the first blow. The true conflict was about to unfold. In the weeks that ensued, James and Bianca discovered themselves at the heart of an escalating legal tempest. Helena's new attorney, Maureen Kellerman, possessed a wealth of experience in unveiling the hidden truths of the powerful. The lawsuit that Helena initiated was twofold: a wrongful death claim concerning her unborn child, and an attempted murder charge linked to the dubious circumstances surrounding Helena's fall. James attempted to find a peaceful resolution, presenting Helena with a substantial offer. He even set up a private meeting with her, excluding Bianca from the scene. He entered her lawyer's office in a state of disarray, the marks of anxiety visible on his face. "Helena," he started. "I apologize. I never wished for you to feel pain. The events of that night spiraled beyond control." "Bianca." "Her." "Halt." Helena interrupted him, her voice sharp and cold. "Both of you share the responsibility. Don't place the entire burden on her. You distanced yourself from me. You deceived me. You concealed it." James's eyes overflowed with a sense of urgency. "I'm willing to offer you whatever you desire. Let's avoid going to court. The intense examination by the media. It will obliterate all that we have created." Helena raised her chin with a bold determination. "You shattered me, James. You took my child away from me. No amount can heal that wound. I will ensure that everyone is fully aware of the events that transpired." Maureen Kellerman passed James a stack of papers. "This outlines Helena's settlement terms, as well as the conditions for a public admission of guilt concerning the accident. We possess proof that your mistress, Bianca Rossi, was directly involved in the act of physically pushing Helena off the balcony. If you find these terms unacceptable, we will move forward to trial." James's hand trembled as he turned the pages. The amount was considerable, yet it was the open acknowledgement of wrongdoing that left him paralyzed. It could tarnish his reputation and potentially lead to Bianca facing prison time. "May I take a moment to confer with my legal team?" he murmured. Maureen and Helena shared a glance. Helena gave a slight nod. "Take all the time you require," she remarked. "Yet, it won't last indefinitely. I'm not backing down from the criminal case. This is merely the civil claim." With that, James departed, the burden of his deceit bearing down on him. Bianca seethed upon hearing Helena's demands. She attempted to sway James, pushing him to retaliate. "How could she possibly tarnish our reputations like that?" she spat. "We can overwhelm her with legal expenses, James. Your legal team is superior. We shouldn't allow her to intimidate us." However, the discovery phase of the lawsuit revealed evidence that even James's formidable legal team found challenging to conceal. Security footage, medical testimony, dubious bank transactions, and the hushed accounts of staff who had once been coerced into silence, each piece fell into place in Helena's stronghold of truth. Then Bianca's anger surged to a perilous level. She attempted to instill fear in Helena, challenging her in a secluded corridor just outside the courthouse. "Do you really believe you can treat us this way?" she unleashed a sharp retort. "Surviving at all is quite the stroke of fortune. You ought to have kept your distance." Helena's heart raced at the glimpse of her tormentor. Yet she maintained a facade of tranquility, her fingers tightly wrapped around the cane for support. "You cannot fathom the luck you possess in my survival, for now, retribution shall be delivered." Bianca surged ahead, her expression contorted with fury. Just as she was about to act, a security guard stepped in, restraining her movement. The outburst reinforced her aggressive disposition, perfectly aligning with Helena's legal storyline. As the case approached trial, James became increasingly withdrawn. His usually vibrant public image diminished. Whispers spread about his solitary nights in the office, where he drowned his sorrows in drink, shunned phone calls, and wallowed in past mistakes. Meanwhile, Bianca maintained her lavish lifestyle, gracing parties and galas with a strained smile. Determined to hold on to the social standing she had worked so hard to achieve. Yet beneath that facade of confidence, both James and Bianca were filled with fear. They felt the walls tightening around them, the empire they had constructed on deceit disintegrating. And Helena, a woman they had once considered insignificant, was the one orchestrating their demise. The day of the court hearing arrived, capturing significant attention from the media. As Helena entered the courthouse, her cane tapping softly against the floor, the cameras captured every moment with fervor, her conservative suit a striking contrast to the bustling scene around her. She maintained her poise, acknowledging the reporters with a steady nod, yet chose to remain silent. Bianca made her entrance in a whirlwind of high-fashion attire, accompanied by her attorney. James lagged behind, appearing emaciated, his former assured stride completely absent. Helena's legal team crafted a persuasive argument. The medical reports revealed that Helena's injuries aligned with a significant forceful push. Expert witnesses provided testimony indicating that the bruises on Helena's wrists were probably the result of a physical confrontation rather than a fall. The hush-money trail deepened the involvement of James and Bianca in a concealment scheme. The prosecution, in conjunction with Helena's civil suit, sought to establish beyond a reasonable doubt that Bianca had attempted murder, with James playing a complicit role. Bianca's defense team attempted to portray the situation as a heartbreaking mishap driven by Helena's envy, yet their claims crumbled during cross-examination. The guard, having caught sight of the conflict, ultimately consented to provide testimony under an immunity deal. He verified that Bianca had aggressively pushed Helena. His memory matched Helena's wounds and the path of her descent. During the trial, Helena experienced a tumultuous mix of emotions: anger, grief, triumph, and deep sorrow for her lost child. She stepped forward, narrating that evening with meticulous precision. She recounted the anguish of her husband's treachery, the dread of those last moments on the balcony, and the unbearable pain of losing her unborn child. Her testimony was heartfelt, filled with emotion. The atmosphere in the courtroom shifted, with the judge and jury clearly affected by her unwavering strength. Bianca became more and more unstable. She hurled allegations at Helena, asserting that she was fabricating stories for financial gain and revenge. James settled deeper into his seat, either reluctant or incapable of standing up for Bianca's outbursts. When it was his moment to speak, James confessed to the affair and acknowledged his presence in the room when Helena fell. Despite his attempts to evade responsibility, the evidence loomed too large to ignore. After 2 days of careful consideration, the jury reached a decision. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation as they finally came back with a decision. Bianca Rossi has been convicted of attempting to commit murder. The atmosphere in the courtroom crackled with energy. James Davenport was discovered to be involved in concealing the crime, yet the extent of his punishment continued to be a matter of legal intricacy. He confronted significant penalties and the possibility of a reduced prison term if it was determined that he had assisted in the attack. As the bailiff led Bianca out of the courtroom, she shot a venomous glare at Helena, her eyes ablaze with rage. "This decision will haunt you. I'll ensure you face the consequences, you disabled one." She left it incomplete. The bailiff held her firmly, and her curses reverberated against the marble walls. Helena inhaled unsteadily, a blend of relief and fatigue washing over her. She had ultimately achieved the justice that was due for the life that was taken, her child's life, and for herself. In the realm of civil matters, the jury granted Helena a significant sum in damages, an amount so considerable it posed a serious risk to James's personal wealth. Public sentiment shifted significantly to support Helena. The media depicted her as a brave individual who triumphed over unimaginable treachery. In a single night, the once illustrious reputations of James and Bianca crumbled, giving way to scorn and derision. In the weeks after the verdict, Helena experienced a deep and complex swirl of feelings. A flood of messages poured in, with some coming from strangers moved by her narrative, while others were from long-lost friends extending late apologies for their absence in her time of need. Contributions flowed generously to the organizations she championed, particularly those assisting victims of domestic violence and abuse. James encountered a formal sentencing hearing. Before the judge, he succumbed to emotion, tears streaming down his face as he expressed his heartfelt apologies to Helena. Helena found herself questioning the authenticity of his remorse, unsure if it stemmed from true regret or a mere sense of urgency. He obtained a lesser prison sentence by aiding the prosecution, yet he was no longer the formidable figure in the business world. His possessions were confiscated or liquidated to satisfy the court's compensation directives and cover escalating legal expenses. Bianca, in contrast, was handed a significant prison sentence. Her outburst in court had diminished any compassion the judge may have contemplated. Despite her promises of retribution, she found herself helpless within the confines of her cell. On a crisp autumn morning, Helena made her way to her child's grave in a quaint cemetery on the city's edge. She had selected a serene corner plot, distinguished by a modest headstone inscribed with the words, "For the little one who never saw the sunrise." She knelt, gently laying a white lily upon the grave. Warm tears welled in her eyes, and for a fleeting moment, she permitted herself to grieve without restraint. "I did it," she whispered, her voice quivering. "I exacted my due, yet it does nothing to restore what was lost." She lingered for an hour, immersed in reflections of what might have been, a nursery brimming with laughter, a future rich with promise. Yet she also experienced a feeling of liberation. She had battled for what was right, not only for her child, but for every act of treachery she had faced. As she stood to depart, a soft breeze whispered through the leaves. She found her balance with the support of her cane, embracing her limitations with newfound confidence. She adorned her scars as if they were a shield now. Every step she took was a declaration of independence, crafting a fresh journey that she would navigate according to her own desires. In Manhattan once more, Helena found herself embracing a simpler, more tranquil way of life. With the funds she received, she founded a small organization dedicated to aiding women in their recovery from abusive relationships and traumatic experiences. She called it the Aurora Foundation, representing fresh starts following the bleakest of nights. Adele, her friend, played a crucial role in the establishment of the foundation. They collaborated to organize close-knit fundraising events. The initial success was humble, yet gradually, prominent individuals began to pay attention. Helena's personal narrative struck a chord, leading to an increase in donations. She garnered recognition from prominent philanthropic organizations, highlighted by a mention in a Red Cross campaign that celebrated the Aurora Foundation's influence on local women's shelters. Even with society's newfound admiration for Helena, she stayed humble and true to herself. She recalled the years of hardship, the sorrow of losing her unborn child, and the pain of relearning to walk. She bore that pain not as a weight, but as a testament to her resilience. Even with the haunting shadows of nightmares, Helena rediscovered her refuge within the realm of art. She dedicated her time to local galleries, assisting in the curation of intimate exhibitions for up-and-coming artists. Observing fresh talent blossom filled her with a refreshing sense of vitality. At times, she would linger for hours, absorbed in a painting that resonated with her spirit, evoking memories of her past when she thought her marriage was a work of art. James, confined within the walls of his cell due to his involvement in the cover-up, penned a heartfelt letter of remorse to Helena. He confessed his vulnerability, revealing how he let avarice and desire eclipse affection. He asserted that he would dedicate the remainder of his time to atonement, yearning for the day he might win her forgiveness. Helena perused his letter and sensed a spark of compassion, yet she understood that the path to forgiveness was one she had to navigate on her own. She found herself questioning whether she could ever genuinely forgive him. Some scars ran far too deep. Bianca's destiny was determined. She found herself devoid of influential supporters, with no wealth to uphold her. Her name echoed with treachery and brutality, murmured in quiet conversations at the very gatherings she once ruled. In her new world, Helena discovered a serene sense of fulfillment. Even as she navigated her world with the aid of a cane and carried the weight of her grief, she discovered the beauty in life's little pleasures, strolling through Central Park at dawn, sharing peaceful meals with Adele, and finding fulfillment in uplifting women in need through the Aurora Foundation. In a city as unforgiving as New York, Helena unearthed her own strength, and with every dawn that illuminated her modest apartment, she recalled that she was no longer the powerless wife who had once descended into despair. She emerged anew, rising from the remnants of her past, resolute in her quest to illuminate the world with an even greater brilliance. And that, dear viewers, concludes Helena's arduous journey from the penthouse balcony, where betrayal nearly led her to the edge of death, to her brave return years later, resolute in her quest for justice and the reclamation of her life. Ultimately, the wealthy individual who once reveled in avarice found himself stripped of all he possessed, while the cunning seductress faced the harsh repercussions of her ruthless actions. Helena, with her indomitable spirit and steadfast determination, triumphed, albeit at a staggering price. As you clung to the edge of your seat, experiencing Helena's anguish and victory, keep in mind that genuine resilience is rooted in the ability to endure, resist, and ultimately recover. This tale serves as a poignant reminder that the universe keeps track of every debt left unpaid, and while justice may take its time, it ultimately finds a way to triumph. If this story resonated with you, consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. Keep an eye out for more amazing tales.